guys, as was mentioned, my name is Anniina. Here is a little slide that you can kind of see who I am and also my email address. So I'm from Aalto University here in Helsinki. I have done both my undergrad studies here and now currently doing my master's degree. And then I did this project last year, so 2020-21, and this year I'm going to be the teaching assistant for our students. So that's kind of just a background on myself. And my project last year was together with the KIT in Germany, so Cultural Institute of Technology. So we were 4 students here in Aalto and then 4 students in KIT. And this is my team. You can see that we were a lovely blend of nationalities and genders and different backgrounds. We had students from industrial engineering and economics, myself from design. And then I just wanted to show you this slide. This is exactly a year ago when our team was doing the GKO. We had a lot of fun doing the exercises. So if you haven't done the treasure hunt activities yet, I really highly recommend. We had a lot of fun and a lot of laughter. And it was a really important moment for us to kind of build connection with our fellow partners. And our project team was actually working with IBM, the international business machine, a big international corporation. We were working with the German IBM in Munich. And this is the kind of case that we had. IBM has this big building called Watson Center in the center of Munich. And they asked us to redesign or reinvent this client center. So we actually did nothing with the IBM's actual products. We were kind of more looking into the client center and how to reinvent that. So the case was basically make this experience at the client center better. But when I was preparing for this kind of fire camp session, I thought that I could go on and talk about our project and what we actually did and the different phases that we went through and the prototypes that we built. And I have kind of some slides on that later, but actually I thought that what would be most interesting thing for you guys to hear from me is me reflecting on the project itself and our teamwork and the learnings. Hey, that's Paula who joined us. Paula right there is actually one of our team members from KIT. Paula is the teaching assistant in KIT this year, so yay. Lovely to see you, Paula. So apologies to Paula because there's going to be some pictures of us and her as well. But yeah, I thought that I would spend some time on actually reflecting on the teamwork, because I think that's where a lot of the learning happened that you might not hear in the lectures that your lectures are keeping or in the GKO for that matter. So these were kind of the 4 things that we kind of went through and realized that were really big challenges throughout the project. And then I'm going to show you some insights of how we actually kind of mitigated and kind of solved these issues. So the 4 things are how to build relationship in a distributed global virtual team, how to sustain motivation, how to mitigate context shifts, and how to make sure that there's constant feedback and reflection. So the first thing, building relationships. So as many of you know, Sugar happens in a globally distributed team, and we were in 2 countries, but we were also in multiple different locations. So even though we were in Finland and Germany, even in Finland, we were not all in the same city. We were kind of distributed all around Finland. So we had a big challenge of how do we build a team community, like team culture and team spirit when everybody is virtual and we're from different backgrounds and different cultures. So we really took our time in the global kickoff to get started with that, but that was something also that we really intentionally built throughout the project. Building relationships one-on-one, having these kind of one-on-one chats, making sure that there was time in the beginning and in the end of meetings just to catch up and really kind of be humans in the same space, even though it was all virtual. So that was the kind of challenge I said. We were in different locations throughout the project. We were in different countries, different time zones. So it was a big challenge. And these kind of the things that we did. So in the beginning, we kind of set these core values. Actually, we did this exercise during the global kickoff, and we came back to these frequently throughout the project and kind of like, are we still aligned? Maybe not like very intentionally, but kind of somebody always reminded, hey, like actually, we're kind of doing things here now that are kind of against our core values. We should do something different. We should change our kind of approach. And then we talked about in the beginning kind of the wishes and hopes that we had for the project. So if you remember on Tuesday, Aaron and Christine were talking about this exercise of hopes and fears and expectation. That was a really, really important exercise for the global team to have this conversation, like what are we actually expecting as individuals from this project? Because we're coming from very different backgrounds and different stages of life. Some of us have already worked in the industry and are expecting to get something that might be different from somebody who has basically just moved up from undergrad studies. Or so it's really important to talk about that, and that's what also something that we did. And then we made sure that we had a lot of fun activities planned throughout the year to build that relationship. Then sustaining motivation. So it might not feel like that now because you all started just and it's all exciting and you're meeting all these interesting people and you're meeting your corporate partner and you're getting started with the project. The motivation is on its peak, and let me tell you, it's not going to stay this way for forever. It might be staying that way for like a while, but it's not going to stay like that forever. Let me tell you, there's going to be a time around maybe January, February, when, especially here in the global north, it's cold and it's dark and there's a lot of work and it's not easy to kind of work on these projects. So the motivation starts to kind of plummet. It is really, really important then to kind of catch yourself as a team from that and start working to kind of sustain and build that motivation back up. Especially because, at least for us last year, we were all working from home. We were not able to go to our campuses. We were all stuck in our bedrooms using our laptops. So the motivation dump really started to hit around January. Here are some faces and some pictures and some, how do you call these? Memes that were shared around that time. Like the virtual meetings were getting quite heavy. I think people were communicating about things differently. That's a meme right there about me trying to communicate something about the vision that I had about where we should go next. And, you know, the atmosphere was kind of plummeting at that, around that point. There we go. So the things were kind of what we did to kind of solve this. So, for example, one thing that came really helpful around that time is that we started using this rota of roles. So we assigned these kind of 4 roles, and then we had this kind of turning shift of people taking different roles in the project. And that really worked well for us. You can experiment something similar where not every person, like one person would always have the same role throughout the weeks, but we actually would change them around. Another thing we started doing is these kind of tune-ins. So in the beginning of meetings and work sessions, we do something fun together, some sort of a little exercise to kind of set us all in the same headspace. For example, here, this one was our tune-in about having a dinner party or dinner meal time together, everybody bringing their favorite dish on the table and sharing about that. Also, we played a lot of games, online games. For example, Jackbox is this kind of online platform for gaming, and we had a lot of fun, and those were so important to kind of keep the momentum going in terms of having these fun times to kind of break that. Also, what we did for ourselves was this kind of challenge. We kind of set these kind of milestones that we were struggling with, like, okay, getting our customer interview or kind of having benchmarks done. So then we kind of set these kind of things that if we get these things done, then we treat ourselves with these rewards. For example, having a snack party or a Spanish night or dress up Thursday. And we did that. And it was so much fun. For example, the Paula helped me there. That was maybe the highlight of my year. It was so nice. So we had a virtual cookout. Paula had sent us a shopping list. And then we all came together and followed Paula when she instructed us how to cook the original, authentic Spanish paella, and it was so nice, even though we were not able to be in the same space. Sustaining motivation, other ways to do that, kind of having local hangouts as teams, and kind of building empathy. Anyway, mitigating context shifts. This is something really difficult, especially if you're working only online, but it's going to be also the same if you're kind of going from one meeting to another. So context shift is the kind of moment where you have to move from one thought to another, from one project to another, from one session to another. And kind of what we did around this is kind of we're mindful of it and organize these little moments of kind of bringing everybody to the same space. And then kind of making sure that we had constant feedback and reflection happening throughout the year. So we had the kind of the facilitator role that was kind of mindful of these moments of, okay, how are we doing, how are we feeling, where are we kind of going, and giving feedback for one another and as a global team. And then that's my final slide, just as a reminder. It's a long project, and there's going to be a moment in the end that you feel like you're done. And then you remember, I actually know we had one more deliverable, one more thing. So just kind of make sure that you kind of keep the momentum and take good care of one another until the very end, so that you have energy to actually like make the final deliverables, and then you can all go and celebrate together. I think that was my 10 minutes. Did I spend 10 minutes? Maybe. Okay, well, that was what I have prepared, and now it's time for you to ask some questions. We can actually talk about the project itself, but I thought that it would be interesting to kind of share this side of the project as well. So guys, what's up? Any questions? This is your moment. Who wants to go first?
Oh yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really great. Thank you so much for sharing. I think you gave me a lot of ideas on how our team could be going in the future. I have a question about leadership. So I just want to know how you organize and how leadership take these roles into your team. Is it like you have one person that's sort of act like a team leaders for each team, or like you take turns and then doing a more like democratic version of like your team? Yeah.
That's a good question. So yes, we didn't actually assign particular leadership. So from the beginning, we assigned kind of roles. So for example, we had agreed that both sides had a kind of company representative, the person who would be in charge of communicating to our client. But other than that, in the beginning, we didn't choose any like, okay, you're the project manager or you're the leader. But then as I showed you this one on the kind of rota of roles, you can see that there's this kind of captain column. So we then kind of realized that we do need someone for every week that is kind of a little bit on top of schedules and deliverables and kind of where we're supposed to be kind of in this project. So the captain role was that. The captain was in charge for that week, like what is supposed to be happening and organizing everything, being the captain of the ship. But as you can see, that role then like shifted for every week. So that meant that it also gave everybody the chance to practice that skill, because some of us might be a bit more skilled in that to begin with or more experienced. So this kind of rotation actually allowed for every single student to practice that skill of, okay, being the captains. And that worked for us. But again, the circuit teams are self-organized. So you might try something different. You might try something like this. So it's up to you to choose how you do it. But for us, this worked really well and allowed everybody the learning experience as well. Any other questions?
Thank you, Anniina. That was really cool. And how did it work with the tune-ins, with the food parties? Were you meeting online, or how did that go? Maybe I missed that part, sorry.
Right, so this example here about the food party was just one example of the tune-in. So as you can see again on the rota of roles, there's the column for facilitator. So every week somebody was in charge of thinking of kind of the dynamics of teamwork for that week, because we were working mainly online because both of countries had very strict lockdowns some part of the year, so we were not able to meet on campus, so we were all online. So having the facilitator, think about, okay, what kind of exercises, what kind of methodology are we going to use, was really important. So that person usually was the one that would prepare tune-ins and tune-outs for our work sessions. So some sort of a little exercise in the beginning that would kind of bring everybody the same page, kind of have a little moment of laughter or kind of get people focused. And an example here about the food party was just one of these. We had all sorts of different tune-ins, but this was one of them. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question there, Maya, but yeah, that was what that was. But then we had that kind of cookout as a separate thing. That was a kind of fun session where we cooked paella and other snack kind of moments. Yeah.
If you have a question, have you maybe something you want to share from your team setup, and maybe Anniina can give you even feedback on what else you could do, what you have already done right now. This is your moment to share, to ask Anniina.
Yeah, I can see Doris having her hand up. Doris, do you have a
Yeah, I want to ask, how do you synchronize the team's work between like two teams in different country?
That's a wonderful question. So to our benefits, Finland and Germany are only 1 hour apart. That made it life much, much easier. But I think just starting from the fact that we were on different time zones, we had to learn very early on that when we're communicating about different meeting times or time kind of things, we had to learn a habit of marking the time zones. So for example, in our case, whenever we communicated about something, a meeting starting or a workshop, we would always mark the both time zones. So we would always do that the German time first and then the Finnish time in what is it? Brackets. So then we would always see, like, you would know, okay, what time it is, that you don't have to wonder, like, was this now meant to be on the Finnish time or German time? And I think that's going to be very helpful for you guys to also learn. But then, because we were a virtual team, we were able to kind of mix the team as we wanted to throughout the year. We didn't have to kind of be in as the kind of local team. So actually, for us, the boundaries between Finnish and German teams were quite blurry. I don't think we were really mindful about that. We were just one global team that was working together. So if you remember from Sushi's presentation on Thursday, no, actually, it was actually Sushi's slide from Aaron's presentation of this kind of sub team. So you can kind of mix and match the team as you want throughout the year. That some tasks might make sense to work as the two kind of locally based teams, but then it might make sense to kind of split the team, kind of split ways and have like partners or like some sort of sub teams that are working on particular tasks. And then there's the question of good communication and organizing that and using some sort of a platform to communicate well of what each team is doing.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Looks like there's not much. I was thinking that might happen, so I wanted to kind of show you a little bit of actually what we did in the case of our project. I'm not going to go this in too deep. Maybe here. So what we ended up actually doing in the end, it was a long story. We did long routes to get there, but we realized that in the end, it wasn't about the actual physical space that we had been asked to design. It wasn't about the tour for the visitors. It was actually about empowering the IBM staff themselves. So what we ended up doing as our final final prototype, final solution was this participatory transformation design concept, which was really new for all of us. So we had to kind of upskill ourselves a lot. What does this mean and how does it look like? But what we actually did then in the end was a big workshop for the staff of the Watson Center. So we had a 6-hour workshop for, I think, about 20 staff members online from different departments in the Watson Center in Munich for IBM. So we had people from the technical team, from the client-facing team, from the operations team, admin team. And we brought all of these 20 people to actually talk to one another and talk about the issues that they were having in their work. And what we then did from that workshop is kind of packaged it into this toolbox that they are able then to use to reinvent themselves continuously. And I don't know, we don't have much time to actually go much into this toolbox, what was in the toolbox. So that's why I thought that I'm going to suggest that I'm going to send you the link to this video. We did a video about what we did, and we interviewed the people after the workshop, and they talk about the kind of impact our workshop actually had on their kind of organization. And I can also send you the link to the webpage where we talk about this more in detail. But why I wanted to show you this in the end now is that you might start with a brief that says something about, okay, redesign the space or redesign the customer experience. And then through the process, you will end up realizing that actually the real issue is not the experience itself, but it's the people who are organizing the experience. So we have to actually tackle that issue first. And if we tackle that, the second thing is going to be kind of solved. So maybe that was kind of, in the end, I want just to share that trust the process and kind of ask the question continuously, is the brief the real, is the problem that is described in the brief the real problem, or actually can we discover something underneath that is even more important to solve? And then when you solve that, the kind of original problem is going to be solved as well.